Moscow, and there are no coincidences. And on the flight over here, I was reading from one of the Kabbalists from this area, and I think it's important to share from the light that was revealed in that place. So the first point we're going to cover is a lesson from a book called the OR Ganuz. And the beginning of this week's portion, and it's really always true, as the Rav always says, that the more mundane a portion seems to be, the more light there is in it. The beginning of this week's portion, it says, "Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe le'emor," the Creator speaks to Moses, saying, "Speak to your brother Aaron," and this was during the time of the tabernacle. Speak of a sacrifice that was brought in the morning. It's called the Olah, in the morning and in the afternoon. The OR Ganuz says, talking about the sacrifice, talking about the altar, it says, "Ha'esh tukad al hamizbeach lo tichbeh," that the fire needed to be sustained in the altar all the time. It should never be put out. What is the secret of this verse? Because again, we know that the more mundane a verse is, the more light is truly being revealed in the hidden meanings behind it. And he says, "She'or shel sheshet yemei bereshit." We know that when the world was created, there was the totality of the light of the Creator revealed. It's called the light of the first 6 days of creation. It's also referred to as the OR Ganuz, the concealed light. That light, Ra'a Adam Arishon misof ha'olam ve'ad sofo. Adam at the time, and any individual who's able to connect to this light, is able to see everything. Is able to see past, certainly clarity about the present, and is able to see into the future. And therefore Adam, when he connected to this concealed light, what's called the light of the first 6 days of creation, he was able to see all of eternity. After Adam sinned, after he acted with his desire to receive for the self alone, the light became removed, it became concealed. What happened to that light? Rav Ashlag speaks about it in the introduction to the 10 luminous emanations. The light was clothed. Concealment doesn't mean that the light is removed. It just means that the light is clothed. It is now, you can't see it beyond its clothing unless you're able to penetrate that clothing. And that light was concealed within the wisdom of the Torah, within the secrets of Kabbalah. So that really the purpose of study is to be able to really access that concealed light. And therefore it says that there was a certain great sage, his name is Rabbi Meir. It says that after Adam and Eve fell, it says that they were clothed in clothing of or, with a letter ayin, which means leather clothing. But in the Torah of Rabbi Meir, it says or with the letter aleph, which is light. And the secret of that understanding is that Rabbi Meir knew that the purpose of study was not wisdom, the purpose of study was not information, but the singular purpose of the study was to penetrate the clothing and access this concealed light, this OR Ganuz. And this was the purpose of Rabbi Meir, this was the purpose of all the true great Kabbalists. How to access the concealed light that exists within the Torah, the concealed light that exists within the secrets of the study of Kabbalah, the secrets of this world. ורבי מאיר היה מלמד את בני דורו ומאיר עיניהם איך לבוא אל האור הגנוז. And the purpose of any true Kabbalist, and it was the purpose of Rabbi Meir, was not to teach, was not to give wisdom, was not to give information. It was how can you give people the access to connect to the OR Ganuz, to the concealed light. And if you have access to the concealed light, you have clarity about today, and you also have a vision into the future. And that, he says, is the secret of this Shabbat, the secret of this week. It says, Zot Torat Ha'olah. Literally, it means this is the teaching of the sacrifice that was brought up. But the Kabbalist, Maor Einayim, is saying it's not referring to a sacrifice going up. This is the teaching, or this is the study that is meant to elevate a person into the OR Ganuz, into the concealed light. Ki al yedei haTorah nitaleh ha'adam, because through the study, through true study, the individual becomes elevated. But only if his purpose in studying is to access its concealed light. If a person is studying to understand, if a person is studying just to gain wisdom or to gain understanding, but doesn't have uppermost in his or her desire that the singular purpose why I am studying is to be able to access into this OR Ganuz, into this concealed light, he'll never access it. A person can become wise, a person can gain information, and can gain wisdom. But if the single purpose for which he or she are studying is not to be able to access that concealed light, they'll never be able to access it. Because if a person merits to connect through his study, because that's his desire, to the concealed light within the wisdom, within the Torah, then yabit al yedei ha'or ganuz ma sheyeh misof ha'olam ve'ad sofo. Then he is meant to come to an elevation where he or she can see into the future. If a person's purpose is not to be able to connect to that concealed light so that they can access the future, then there really isn't a true purpose to their study. And the person has to really be gauging himself or herself in their study. Am I being able to see it, maybe not into a year from now, but into 5 minutes from now, to 10 minutes from now, into a half a year from now? Can I begin to really appreciate and see into the future? Because that's the purpose of the study. If you're studying in a true way, if you're studying with a true desire, it gives you access into this concealed light. And if you have access into the concealed light, you get to see into the future. V'zeu tzav, and therefore, in this week's portion, the word Moses uses is the word tzav, which is a ziruz, an awakening. Because there's a great danger in studying. There's a great danger in gaining wisdom or understanding or information. You think that's all it's about. And therefore, Moses tells us, miyad uledorot. Are you making the purpose and the focus of your study to be able to see into the future? Hainu sheyeh shavim lo ma shehu ata bahoveh u'ma sheyeh ledorot. If a person is truly studying, if a person is truly connecting not to the surface knowledge, but to the light that is within that knowledge, he must be gaining access into seeing the future. V'lachen amar Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, and therefore Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai in the Zohar was able to give teachings over that would only be revealed by sages many generations later. There are many times in the Zohar you find a teaching that is really only revealed many years later. Because Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai was able to access the concealed light, the OR Ganuz within the wisdom, within the Torah. And because of that, he was able to see all the wisdom that will ever be revealed. And that's where the Zohar, the energy of the Zohar, the light of the Zohar, is all the light that will ever be revealed. Because the author of the Zohar, the light, the soul that revealed the light of the Zohar was Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who gained access into the concealed light. And by gaining access into the concealed light, he was able to access the future. And therefore, he was able to write down all the wisdom that will ever be. But that, again, the most important understanding from all of this is that that's the purpose of our study. To gain access into the OR Ganuz, into the concealed light. And by that, you have the ability to see into the future. V'chen Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore also we know about Moses, he saw Rabbi Akiva, he saw many of the great souls, all the great souls that will ever live. Because if you gain access into the concealed light, you gain access into the future. שהוא מחמת שעל ידי תורתם באו אל האור הגנוז, because through their study they gained access into the concealed light, and by gaining access into the concealed light, you gain access into the future. ושם אין חילוק בין מיד ובין לדורות. ששם שווה הוא מה שעתיד להיות. Because we know that when you access into the true level, which is called the concealed light, time and space and motion no longer exist as barriers. So what happened in the future, you can access now. And therefore, again, the Kabbalist and commentator Rashi says that you need to awaken people to this, especially when there is chisron kis, when there is a lack of a true understanding of why we study, a lack of a true understanding of what is the purpose of all this study. Im lomed, if a person truly studies with this desire, with this purpose, uba la'or ganuz, and through the study you're able to access the true light that is within it. Sham ein mitlabesh ha'or b'shum kisui. There is no more veils. There are no more barriers. V'sham lo hayta nitkaseh ha'or b'levush ha'torah. There you're able to remove all the veils of the literal Torah, of the literal wisdom. V'az ha'or haya b'itgalya. And then the light is revealed completely. Ha'adam ha'lomed shelo b'derech zeh. But if a person studies, and we have to ask ourselves this question on the Shabbat, do we understand why we're studying? Do we understand why we're trying to access this wisdom? And it has to be. Maybe there are other secondary reasons. But the single most important reason why we should be pushing ourselves to study is because I want to access the concealed light. I don't want to become wise. I don't want to gain information. I don't want to be able to teach. I want to be able to access the concealed light that is behind this wisdom. If a person does not make that the focus of their study, שלא בדרך חנל שיבוא אל האור הגנוז, הוא אינו מועיל לא בלימודו. There is no purpose to the study. If the focus and the desire behind the study is not to access the OR Ganuz. ואין זה המכוון של השם יתברך. And that is not the purpose for which the Creator put wisdom in this world. שאין זה העיקר כי אם שעל ידי התורה יעלה למעלה מאותיות. You're meant to go above the letters. You're meant to go above the literal understanding, the literal wisdom. היינו למקום שאין התלבשות להאור. To elevate to the place where the light is revealed without any barriers. במקום שהייתה התורה אור קודם החטא. To the place where the light was revealed before Adam fell. And this is the first understanding we want to receive on the Shabbat. A refocusing maybe of why we study. There is only one real purpose to our study. The real purpose to our study is to gain access into the OR Ganuz. And it's as simple as that, meaning every one of us today, tomorrow, when we sit down and study, we should remind ourselves, because as the Rav always says, consciousness is everything. If I understand that the reason why I'm studying now is because I want to access the concealed light within the words of what I'm going to read, then I am given the opportunity to do that. If I don't have consciousness, if I don't ask for that before I begin to study, I will never, chas v'shalom, the individual will never gain access to that concealed light. And how do you gauge? How do you know if you're really accessing the OR Ganuz? If present and future are the same. If you're gaining the ability to see into the future. That's the purpose. It's not the purpose for righteous souls, it's our purpose. If throughout, and again, maybe not all of us will, as we begin to concentrate on this and ask for this, begin to see a year or 2 years into the future, we should be able to start feeling at least 10 minutes, half an hour into the future. But that's the purpose. Present and future have to become the same to us. And the way to access that is through our study. But the way to access it through our study is if when we're studying, we say to ourselves, we remind ourselves and we ask, why am I studying now? I'm not studying for wisdom. I'm not studying even to solve a problem. I'm studying because I know beyond these words, there is the concealed light. And I ask that through my study, I gain access to that concealed light. And by gaining access to that concealed light, I gain access into the future. And if you have this consciousness and you request it and you're consistent with it, you gain access into the concealed light. You gain access, therefore, into the future.